And in case some of you were not here at the start or did not come at all for the county commissioner candidates, I want to briefly go over the way the forum will be proceeding. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an introductory statement. Then the questions will be asked. If the question is generic for either candidate, both candidates will have a chance to answer the question. I will determine the order in which the candidates will respond, and they will each have 1 minute to respond to the question. If a question is addressed to a particular candidate, that candidate will have 1 minute to respond. The opposing candidate will have 30 seconds to respond, and the candidate to whom the question was originally addressed will have 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Candidates may also submit questions to the screeners on the same written question form used by the audience. After we can finish with the questions and answers, which will take about 35 minutes, will be limited to about 35 minutes, then each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks to summarize their qualifications. Following the forum, candidates are invited to stay for a few minutes to answer questions from individual audience members. And going alphabetically, we will have Mr. Deputy Fabrizio? Captain Fabrizio will go first, and then Deputy?
Yes, ma'am.
Kinnaird will go second for the introduction.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your lives to be here. It's really appreciated, really appreciate the fact that everybody's really concerned and understanding that we are facing a lot of issues right now that need addressing. The quick down and dirty about me, thank you. The quick down and dirty about me, I've lived here for 9 years. I've worked in the sheriff's office for 9 years. Got a job the same year I moved here. Prior to that, 20 years in the Army. 3 of those were spent here before. That's where I met my wife, without whom I couldn't do this. Took her away for 8 years. Her family's here. I love my in-laws. We came back. Since I've been in the sheriff's office, I started out in the jail just as a part-time for a very short time, and then went immediately to patrol. I've been in a lot of positions in the sheriff's office: Marine deputy, search and rescue. I've been the emergency manager for the county for a year and a half. Done quite a few things. The last 9 years have been a learning curve that has been straight up the entire time, and it hasn't stopped. It's been amazing. Last 4 of those has been as the administrative captain, in charge of dispatch, civil records, the emergency manager, the PIO, CHLs for the office. When Sheriff Zanny said he wasn't going to run again, he asked me if I wanted to or if I was interested. And honestly, I didn't know. I had to think about it quite a bit. But I realized that time I had both in the military and in the sheriff's office really helped prepare for this. I've been in budget talks for the last 4 years. I've been in the operations of the office and involved in policy and procedure and the whole 9 yards. And I realized that it is something that I can do, and it is something I want to do. I want to serve the community and take more responsibility, always more to do. There is always more to do. So I said yes, and I put my name in, and here we are.
My name's Mike Kinnaird. Running for sheriff for the second time. I actually finished my high school career in Bandon, went in the Navy, spent a little over 5 years in the Navy, and got out and spent some time on the East Coast and came back here in '97 and have been working at the sheriff's office since 2004 as a deputy in corrections. I also, in '98, was in the Oregon National Guard and have served them for 12 and a half years. And in that time, did some projects for the community. And I have a heart for the community. When I ran 4 years ago, I was concerned about the state of the community and where things were at, and thought that I might have some options to try and help. And I feel like a lot of those things are still an issue at this time, especially with the jail. And I would like to be in this position to serve you and to help you facilitate changes in our county and put our county in a place that maybe none of you have never seen before, where we don't have to worry about crime as we do at this time, and address some of the issues with homelessness and mental health in the community, and get ourselves in a position where we could be the envy of the coast. Thank you.
And the questions will be rotating, but we'll start first with Deputy Kinnaird to answer the question first, which is, what is the greatest law enforcement threat to the residents of Coos County, and what can be done to address it?
Well, I believe the greatest threat to law enforcement in the county right now is the state of the jail, the fact that we are not at 100 beds. I have a plan to try and get us up to 100 beds very quickly with some hiring of at least 4 non-sworn personnel in positions where they would not have contact with inmates. That would enable all of the law enforcement in the facility to be able to arrest people and bring them to jail and not have to deal with them over and over again. I think that's pretty much in a nutshell one of the biggest issues we're facing when it comes to the homeless issue, the inability for the ones that are criminal to bring them to jail. And if we could get ourselves at least 150 beds, I think that would help immensely.
Okay. I definitely agree that the jail is the most immediate priority. Having the ability to enforce consequences on people will deter them, but it is a lot bigger than that. In my mind, there's a nexus between homelessness, between mental health and drugs. Drugs is something that is proven to be so detrimental to our community. Measure 110, I am not a fan of Measure 110, and that's one of my plans, hopefully, is to try to fight that legislation somehow. Amend it, repeal it, get rid of it. I think if we can stop this influx of drugs, not only with the overdoses, but I talked to the district attorney's office, and all of these increased crimes, the skyrocketing crimes we're seeing, almost all of them have an element of drugs in them. We knew when it came out that property crimes were going to at least triple. That's not a surprise. But person crimes have increased, and like I said, homelessness and mental health are tied as well. So I think that's my answer.
And starting with Deputy Kinnaird, or excuse me, Captain Fabrizio will go first on the next question,
Yes,
which is, what is the greatest barrier to effective law enforcement in Coos County, and what would you like to see done to address it?
Did you say barrier, ma'am?
Yep, greatest barrier.
Greatest barrier? Thank you. I'm sorry. It is difficult to hear. Mr. Taylor was right. The greatest barrier, I think, right now, and something that we are addressing, again, an immediate problem, is personnel shortages. That's the reason the jail isn't open. It's difficult to find people that want to do the job. The political spectrum for police is, I think, swinging back into favor, but it has gone out of favor so long that people don't want to be cops. And then finding people that are qualified, in addition to that, has been very difficult. We actually ran an ORPAT, that's the Oregon Physical Agilities Test, 2 Saturdays ago. We had 10 applicants, which is more than I could have hoped for. It was wonderful. 8 of them passed. We've made conditional offers for 3, with another one coming up very soon, and we have about 8 people in backgrounds, which is just phenomenal. If we can get our numbers back up to where we have more than 2 deputies on the road at any given time, that will overcome a huge barrier of being in the community and being available, and also open the jail back up to at least 98 beds, and then, depending on what happens with the ballot in November, up to 150.
And
I'd agree with Gabe, but I kind of probably lean more towards funding. Law enforcement in Oregon as a whole is one of the most unsupported of any in the United States. You go to other states and you see way more law enforcement personnel with the ability to enforce the laws of the land. Unfortunately, this is the state that we live in, and these are the things that we're dealt with. And that means we have to find innovative ways to deal with that. And I am definitely open to any different approaches to how we approach issues in the jail and on patrol, and trying to improve efficiencies where we've not been able to in the past. Thank you.
And Deputy Kinnaird, next question goes to you first. How much about the Coos County budget do you know? How have you prepared yourself to manage the sheriff's office budget?
Well, there's a lot I don't know about the budget. I've studied it a little bit. It's a pretty complicated setup. I do have a background in accounting. Raising a family, you obviously have issues with budgets, and you have to find ways to get things done. And I think that I've been able to do that in innovative ways and with my family, and would hope that we can find innovative ways with the budget for the county, especially the sheriff's office, to find ways to improve our services to you, which is the most important part of our jobs, is serving you, making sure that you're safe, making sure that you're not in fear of going out in the public because of the possibility of being the victim of a crime. Thank you.
Intimately, very well. Over the last 4 years, I've been party to every aspect of the sheriff's office budget. Every line I've presented to the commissioners, to the Citizen Oversight Board. I've filed dozens, if not hundreds, of agenda items with the commissioners regarding spending of the money of the budget. I could actually recite each of the divisions in the sheriff's office off the top of my head what it costs. Surprisingly expensive, but it's the price of business.
And what is your position, and this again is addressed to you first?
Me? Yes, ma'am.
What is your position on the county measure for a 5-year levy to increase jail funding and capacity? If the measure passes, what would you do to implement it?
Okay. So I support the levy, absolutely. It does come with a caveat, which I'll say at the end. But the levy, it's like Deputy Kinnaird, and like I agree with, that is our biggest priority. That's what is going to help every citizen in the county more than anybody else, is getting that jail opening and bringing back that repercussion. So the 5-year levy, something that hasn't been mentioned yet, the way it's planned, it's 45 cents on the thousand. So if your house is worth $200,000, that's $90 in a year. But that's going to be supplanted, or it is going to supplant two current levies. So the money that's coming out of your pocket won't increase. It'll just come out longer. So the caveat is, and like I said, I definitely support it, we'll have to hire 7 more deputies. We will continue doing what we're doing. We're recruiting, and obviously it's working, as mentioned by the numbers earlier. It's not going to be a magic bullet. It's not going to be right away, but it is super important. We'll keep a list if we go over what we currently have for openings. We'll keep a list, it's called an eligibility list, to fill those spots.
I'm also a fan of the levy. I think it's important that we have funding. I think that with that funding, we would be able to get our jail up to 150 beds. And doing things like Captain Fabrizio mentioned of recruitment, raising the wages of the sheriff's office, I think would help immensely. That funding, I think, could help us with one of the things that I feel like we've been deficient in, and that comes to training. Being able to send our people and get as much training as possible to be the best professionals in the county, in law enforcement. We are severely lacking in that and need a lot of that. And that goes nationwide in a lot of areas. So I'm definitely a fan and would want to implement as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
And Deputy Kinnaird, considering the limited jail space, are there any programs offering alternatives to incarceration that you consider effective? And what resources would be needed to create or maintain such programs here?
So I'm a fan of a sobering center. Working in the jail, some of our most difficult people when they come to jail aren't our killers or people accused of really bad crimes. It's the drunks or the people that are high. And if we could have an alternative such as a sobering center for them to go to, not only if it was local here in Coos Bay and North Bend, that would save them the time of going to Coquille, but it would save our resources in the jail from dealing with those people and possibly getting injured by those people. I also think that the suggestion by my opponent of a mental health facility is greatly needed in this county. It would be an awesome asset if we could find a way to fund that.
I definitely agree. I'll expand on it just a little bit. We've been talking to some of the commissioners about a crisis center. We call it Crisis Center for Mental Health Crisis. The jail often isn't the right place for people in a mental crisis. I've been working with Advanced Health and the MRT, the Mobile Response Team, for solutions. And add to that a sobering center concept as well. I'd be more than willing to, so the jail has an unfinished wing. It's bare floors with stubbins for sewer and water that would be very, very suitable. Of course, there's going to be a lot of regulations and laws that cover how we can manage it, but I'd be more than willing to if Advanced Health or Health and Wellness wants to build a center there and use that separate from the jail. I think that would be a very, very succinct solution. It's there, the deputies are there, the courthouse is there if there is pending charges post-sobering or when the mental health crisis is over.
And Captain Fabrizio, do you feel that the legalization of marijuana has affected the crime rate here?
I do think that in some cases marijuana is a gateway drug to harder drugs. Coupling that with Measure 110, decriminalizing hard drugs for user amounts, 2.5 grams, 49 tabs of ecstasy, etc. It's really taken that fear of drugs away. And my real concern is the next generation and how it's perceived. I'm not going to get in trouble. There's nothing wrong with it. Even the state legislature says it's okay. I think for the most part, people have been responsible with marijuana. I don't think marijuana is physically addictive, much like alcohol. Mentally, absolutely. It's so hard to judge whether there's been problems, but the art of policing on the street, yes, there's been quite a few DUIs from marijuana, so it has reduced safety some. Unfortunately, there's no avenue right now, no procedure to test blood for THC content, so it's really hard to quantify. I don't think it's a bad thing, it's just people are irresponsible sometimes.
I'm definitely not a fan of it. I would agree with a lot of what Captain Fabrizio said. I've unfortunately experienced children using it and seen that results. I believe the results of it using it at an early age causes issues with anxiety, and I've seen that just from my experience in a number of people. I think that making it legal makes it way more accessible to our children, and those are the people that we need to protect the most, and that's one of my big concerns with it. The other is that people seem to think they can do things with it that they really can't, like drive, and that definitely needs to stop.
And again, addressing this one first to Deputy Kinnaird. Talk a little about interagency cooperation in Coos County. How does the Sheriff's Department work with local police agencies and federal law enforcement? What barriers exist to effective cooperation, if any, and how can they be removed?
Well, one of the ways that we work with all law enforcement is the jail. Unfortunately, we're not working with them as well as they'd like us to right now because of our limitations in the number of beds in the facility. I would definitely like to see an increase in beds so that we could do a lot better job of supporting them in that. I honestly haven't seen a lot of interaction when it comes to the federal side, but am more than willing and open to expand that as much as possible in any way that we can. I would like to see a lot better interagency cooperation and find ways for us to come together and not point out our differences as sometimes it seems like we are now, at least in the public realm.
So we are incredibly fortunate in Coos County. We have amazing interagency with the other, not only police, but fire and EMS units. There's no issues with working with anybody. I know our deputies will step in and give a hand anytime, and any officers that are out there will do the same thing. They've helped us so many times because we're often out there on our own. The only barrier that would be there is ego. And thankfully, I know all the police chiefs right now, thankfully, they don't worry about their ego. They worry about the mission. So that barrier has broken down quite a bit. And actually, the communications project, the radio project, was huge for that as well. We had fire representatives, police representatives from most of the agencies, ambulance representatives, and it's super important. That's one of my priorities. I'm actually a firefighter and an EMT as well on Coquille Fire. And that was to learn how first responder agencies can mutually help each other. That was the main reason for me going, not only to work with my wife, who's a firefighter, but to learn the interagency.
And Captain Fabrizio, what do you believe the sheriff's relationship with the district attorney's office should be?
Well, I think like all police agencies, the relationship with the district attorney's office needs to be hand in hand. We are both just two of the cogs in the law enforcement machine, that is. There's pretrial, that's us. Then there's the charging of the instrument, that's the DA's office, then on to state for the trial, and then post-supervision. And they all play such an important role that if you remove any one of those, it's going to fail. That system is there for a reason, and it's there, and it's proven. The DA's office, the deputies, the sheriff, they have to be able to communicate. It's vital, I think, is the answer. It's vital.
Is this a question for the captain or for both of us?
The question is for both of you.
Okay. Wanted to make sure I didn't go over there.
30 seconds.
It's imperative to have, as the captain has said, a hand-in-hand relationship with the DA. It does no good for us to go and arrest people for something that the DA is not going to prosecute. We have to be on the same page and support each other in any way possible so that when it comes to our community, we don't look bad in not being that way and not interacting in a way that's best for the community. I believe a part of the levy is to add more DAs to support so that we are able to prosecute more crimes than we are right now, and I definitely support that happening. Anything that we can do to enforce the law is a good thing in the long run.
And starting this time with Deputy Kinnaird, does the Sheriff's Office have the resources it needs to address issues of mental health and addiction among prisoners, or access to other government agencies tasked with addressing them?
Well, I don't really need a minute for that. The answer is pretty much no. As you know, Your Honor, that being in charge of a mental health court, we are severely hindered in this county with so many people with mental health issues. Just a little bit ago, we have a jail capacity for females of 11. We had 10 females. 8 of those females had serious, very serious mental health issues. And the other 2 probably have mental health issues also, but they're just not serious. We need a ton more funding, and we need you folk to go to your legislatures and ask for ways of finding ways to help our mentally ill, because they're not really getting it now. They're being committed to OSH and having to wait weeks before they can go.
Definitely no, unfortunately. Oregon has definitely failed, I think, in the mental health care. OHSU, they have a hospital, but they're about to release 109 patients that have failure to aid and assist. Coos County, last time I checked, I was talking to Advanced Health, had 4 times the per capita average of other counties in the state of Oregon. And the resources we have are severely lacking. MRT does go into the jail. We allow them to go in to talk to people, but that's one capability of 7 people. And no, we honestly, we don't. We have training on sensitivity. We go to critical incident training, which is how to deal with mental health patients, but we're not counselors. We don't have the capability to truly help them prescribe medications if that's what they need. So going forward, it's definitely going to be a challenge. We'll have to come up with alternative means.
Captain Fabrizio, how can we attract and retain high-quality personnel when deputies are among the lowest paid law enforcement officers in the area? And related to that also is, how does housing availability affect your hiring capability?
Okay. So we're definitely going to have to enhance or increase the other aspects of a job that make it appealing. The morale, the esprit de corps, the pride of being there. There's always pride in being a police officer. Sometimes I can't believe how fortunate I am to have a badge on my chest, and the pride, and just the ability to deal with the community. And that kind of pride is what we need to get to convey. Being on the coast helps. Some of the people I talk to are interested just because we're on the coast. Increasing training, giving our deputies and giving our applicants the ability to plan their own career paths is one thing that I think would help a lot. What schools do you think you need going forward? And then get them those schools and get them that just enhance, make them the best that they are in Coos County, and let them know that they're the best. And they are. No offense, Chief. And really just hitting all that other stuff that makes a job great, the great work environment, the team environment, and becoming known for that. That word of mouth will spread until we can get more money.
I would definitely agree with the last part. If you get your organization finely tuned with awesome leadership, awesome mentoring, you can still get people to come work with you if they think they're going to make a difference. even though you may pay them less, if they think that they're actually going to gain skills and knowledge that they wouldn't with other agencies, they'll come to us. Obviously, more money definitely helps. And that one thing that would help the most is the ability to get them more training and access, well, I kind of lost my thought there. But we also, even though we are one of the lowest paid in the state, have a very awesome benefits package when it comes to most of you. And I for one, greatly appreciate that.
Deputy Kinnaird, what types of enhanced training would you offer your deputies if you could?
Well, one of the big things that I'm a massive proponent of is defensive tactics. I think that our law enforcement throughout the country is severely underfunding training for defensive tactics. I think that a lot of the issues with the George Floyd incident, with the incident in Georgia, if it might be possible with a lot more defensive tactics that they would have been able to handle those folk in a way that it never would have gotten to where it got, and we would not be dealing with the consequences of those actions. That's really one of my pet peeves. We're more likely to fight with someone than we are to pull a weapon on someone. But unfortunately right now, we spend more training on our firearms than we do defensive tactics with our agency.
So we definitely have access to a lot of different training. We just got one deputy back who is now Part 107 qualified, which means he's a pilot for drones. That was pretty neat. We host the Coos County Interagency Emergency Response Team. It's another avenue we have for that interagency cooperation. I've been to sniper school and entry school and hostage negotiations. I try to send everybody I can. We sent 2 of our dispatchers actually to the hostage negotiations. Wonderful communication skills. That advanced stuff that I think is great. There's a young man in the office who is certified personal trainer. I got to talk to insurance first to make sure to be okay, but I plan on creating a wellness program with his help. Actually, he's going to create it because he's fantastic, super smart. And that wellness program to work out, to get diet plans, to bring that again, advanced idea of fitness in will help a lot, and it will help with fighting when we have to do that, unfortunately. All those schools, the CIT I mentioned earlier, is something that is a priority for us. We get everybody through. It's the mental health one. 1 minute.
And Captain,
Yes, ma'am.
as county sheriff, would you be obligated to enforce a law or government order you personally opposed or considered unconstitutional? Do you support or oppose the positions of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association?
Yes, to all of them. Yes, I am bound to uphold the law, but keeping in mind that the sheriff is beholden only to the people that he serves. The sheriff, the position of the sheriff is not responsible, and no offense, Mr. Taylor, to the commissioners or to the state of Oregon, to the governor. The sheriff has the final say with the Constitution. That's the job of the sheriff, is to uphold the Constitution. Sheriff is the highest law enforcement authority in the land for a reason. So he has to uphold those laws, and he has to uphold the Constitution. There are laws that I don't agree with that I do enforce, that I have enforced. There are laws that I don't agree with that I've given warnings for. There are laws that I agree with that I've given warnings for. The discretion of the deputy to educate, sometimes over enforce, is important. If compliance is what we seek, and we can keep people out of the system, that's great. But upholding the Constitution is utmost, yes.
The Constitution is the most important thing to uphold in my mind. I I agree that we need to uphold the law, but also, especially in our situation, there's so many crimes that are going on that as sheriff, my focus is going to be on the crimes that affect you the most. Rape, murder, theft. I don't see that I would have time to necessarily be able to enforce laws that I would see as unconstitutional, because my focus is your safety. And that would be my priority as your sheriff, to keep you safe.
Deputy Kinnaird. Groups like the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and militia-style organizations often recruit from within the ranks of law enforcement. Are you now, or have you ever been a member of such a group?
No. I don't know how to expand on that. No, I haven't been a member of any of those groups.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I need a minute to answer that.
I haven't either. No, I have not. I've looked into them. The 3 percenters, the Oath Keepers, they send out publications and documentation, and I've looked at them, and I don't. It's not that I disagreed. I just didn't think it needed to really participate in an organization that may or may not have its own interests. So, no, me either.
And I think we are unfortunately out of time. Yes.
Oh.
I think that's fortunate for us.
Yeah. So that.
These lights are really bright. I wish I brought my sunglasses.
Super bright.
All right. So Deputy Kinnaird gets to go first with his final statement to the audience about why he should be elected sheriff. He has 1 minute, and then we will finish with Captain Fabrizio.
Well, I'm going to cheat, and hopefully I don't offend anyone. I just want to say a short prayer. Lord, please be with us. Please be with our leaders and my opponent. Please be with our candidates. Please help all of us to be the leaders that we need to be to serve our community in ways that will promote what's best for the life that we want. Help us to come together as a community and find ways to solve these problems. Help us to not be like the car with a flat tire and everybody focusing on how nobody's getting the tire fixed when we still got 3 good ones. But help us to find ways to come together and fix that one tire so that we're all running like we need to be. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think there's so much that I wanted to say, so much that exceeds the time limits we have or the questions that we got. I think importance of goals. I think we didn't really talk about a lot of the goals that we have, really. It was very focused on the questions. One of the most critical things that we can do in the sheriff's office is continue to advance. This career field, it seems like there's a new legislative mandate coming down just about every day. They're often unfunded. We have to find ways to deal with them. And even if you get the office perfect the way you want it, in about 6 months, you'll need to do it again. So advancement of the office, I think, is super important. Technology is something we have to pay attention to, like cameras, like new systems, radio, computer systems, as we go forward. Finding alternate solutions. Because those mandates are unfunded, we have to find ways to look at them. And I think Mr. Taylor mentioned community involvement and community help in finding those ways. I think that's incredibly important. The esprit de corps in the office, recruit, and I'm done. Thank you guys so much.